The morning fog clung to the edges of Fort Mason like a thin veil, the chill settling deep into the bones of every recruit lining the parade ground. Evelyn Shaw stood at attention, perfectly still, eyes scanning the field as Sergeant Blake Carson barked final orders for the day's exercises. Her calm was a constant, unshakable presence amidst the nervous energy of the newcomers. She moved with a rhythm that was almost imperceptible, yet everything around her seemed to adjust to it, like the calm center of a storm. Blake's clipboard clicked under his grip, notes scrawled half-legibly in the margins, but his gaze never left her. The recruits shuffled, fidgeted, whispered among themselves. "Did you see how she handled that rope climb yesterday?" one muttered. "I've never seen anyone move like that." Another laughed nervously. "She's either a machine or lying about being new." Evelyn adjusted the strap of her pack, boots clicking softly against the wet gravel, ignoring the comments. She had learned long ago that presence alone commanded attention. Words were often unnecessary. Blake cleared his throat, a sharp sound that cut through the murmurs. "Squad Delta, assemble at the obstacle course," he ordered. "I want precision, no excuses." The group snapped into line, but Blake's eyes immediately sought Evelyn. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Every motion was deliberate, every step calculated. He had tried to push her, to find a crack, some sign of weakness, but each attempt had only reinforced the growing unease gnawing at him. The obstacle course stretched ahead, mud-soaked, slick with overnight rain. Wooden walls loomed, ropes dangled like serpents, and the scent of damp earth mingled with the metallic tang of worn weapons from the armory nearby. Blake had set up the course to test endurance, balance, and response under pressure, but Evelyn's approach was almost serene. She read the terrain like a blueprint, every grip, every foothold evaluated in microseconds before she acted. "Move!" Blake shouted, the sound bouncing off the nearby hangars. Recruits hesitated, slipping on mud, grunting with effort. Evelyn moved with quiet efficiency, helping one recruit steady himself on the first wall. "Use your legs, not just your arms," she instructed softly. No mockery, no judgment, only guidance. The recruit's eyes widened as he followed her directions, and Blake watched the small interaction, tension tightening his jaw. This was no ordinary trainee. By midday, the sun had burned off the fog, leaving pools of sunlight reflecting off puddles in the dirt. Sweat ran down faces, uniforms clung to tired bodies, yet Evelyn remained composed. Blake had already doubled her reps on several walls, forcing her into exhaustion to see if she would falter. She hadn't, not once, and when she had landed back on solid ground, she simply waited, breathing evenly, scanning the course, eyes never betraying fatigue. It was during the tactical simulation that Blake began to feel something he couldn't easily dismiss. Smoke grenades hissed, alarms screamed, and the recruits panicked, scrambling over each other. Evelyn moved through the chaos like she belonged in the middle of a seasoned unit, issuing calm, precise directions. "Cover left. Sweep the sector. 3 steps. Move." Her voice was quiet, yet absolute. The team followed her rhythm, unaware they were being guided. Blake gritted his teeth. He had trained dozens of recruits, seen countless performances, but this level of command from someone supposedly inexperienced was impossible. And yet here it was, evidence in motion. He scribbled notes furiously, but his mind kept returning to the same unsettling realization. She wasn't reacting to fear, she was anticipating it. By late afternoon, the field was quiet again. Recruits collapsed onto the grass, heaving for breath. Evelyn stood alone, checking the straps on her gear, her movements meticulous. Blake approached, stepping carefully across the trampled earth. "Shaw," he said quietly, not wanting the others to hear. How are you doing this?" She looked up at him, eyes clear, calm. "Doing what, Sergeant?" she asked. There was no arrogance, no hidden satisfaction, just measured inquiry. "Leading," he admitted, voice tight, "even when you're not supposed to. Giving orders, correcting others, controlling the chaos. You're not supposed to know how." Her lips curved slightly. "I'm observing," she said softly, "and teaching where it matters. You've seen it in others too, haven't you? The ones who think they belong but crumble under pressure? I wanted to see if you noticed them." Blake exhaled sharply. He wanted to argue, to prove himself, but words failed him. Observing and guiding, the tone was too practiced, too natural. The morning air at Fort Mason bit sharply at exposed skin, the kind of cold that made lungs ache and teeth chatter. A thin fog hovered over the training field, silver threads weaving between the rows of recruits who shifted nervously in formation. Boots scuffed against damp gravel, leaving faint prints that would vanish by the afternoon sun. The smell of mud, oil, sweat, and adrenaline hung heavy, a scent every soldier remembered from their first day. It was the smell of challenge, of expectations, of bodies and wills being tested from the moment they set foot on base. Sergeant Blake Carson moved between the lines with a calculated intensity, his square jaw clenched against the early chill, his eyes scanning every twitch, every misstep, every nervous glance. In his hand, he carried a small pepper spray canister, part of the base's stress response assessment, designed to measure composure under sudden, uncomfortable pressure. Most rookies wouldn't even see it coming. Most would flinch, cough, stumble, maybe mutter a curse under their breath. Then he stopped. The moment he set his gaze on one particular recruit, the fog seemed to thicken, or perhaps it was just the way the sunlight struck her uniform, casting a faint halo over the neat rows of fabric and gear. The woman's uniform was pristine, pressed so sharply it could have cut glass. Her posture was exact, shoulders square, head level, every movement purposeful. Her eyes were calm, unnervingly so, as though she had stepped out of a place where nerves were optional. She didn't fidget, she didn't glance around, she simply stood. Carson's hand twitched, and on impulse, he flicked the canister open, sending a fine mist of spray toward her face. A green haze, bitter and biting, curled in the air. Most rookies would have coughed, blinked, stumbled. Some might have even howled in irritation. She didn't. She blinked once, steady as stone. The mist rolled around her without causing her to falter. A whisper ran through the line. "Robot rookie." Another muttered, half laughing, "She's part machine, probably." Carson's grin tightened. "We'll see how tough you really are," he thought. He had no idea who she was. Not yet. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Whispered Logs so you never miss these true tales of courage, and share in the comments where you're watching from today. The fog burned off gradually, leaving the field glimmering under the weak morning sun. The recruits were called to formation, names shouted one after another. When the call came for Shaw Evelyn, she stepped forward. Her motion was crisp, precise, and almost ritualistic. Every eye followed her. There was a slight ripple of surprise, a quiet murmur passing through the group. Her salute was sharp, exact, performed with the precision of someone who had drilled it countless times. Not a single error, not a single hesitation. Carson noted it, silently skeptical. Confidence like that could be learned. Arrogance was a shield. He had seen both. Her uniform gleamed, boots polished, sleeves perfectly aligned, straps tightened without any sloppiness. Real soldiers carried the subtle wear of discipline. Dirt smudges, frayed hems, the silent testimony of long hours spent in the field. This one looked too clean, too composed, like a photograph of military perfection come to life. Yet there was something in her stillness, an absence of nervousness that hinted at discipline beyond what most recruits could manage. As the morning stretched on, whispers circulated among the recruits. "Probably some officer's niece," one muttered. "Look at her, she's scared to sweat," joked another. Laughter trailed in waves, punctuated by pointed glances. She didn't respond. She simply adjusted her pack strap, her eyes forward, absorbing everything without reacting. Carson's instincts screamed that this wasn't arrogance masquerading as composure. This was control, earned over time. But he dismissed it, convincing himself he'd seen similar acts before. Recruits who had spent weeks rehearsing confidence, waiting for the first sign of weakness to crumble. The gear issue station revealed more. Carson watched her handle every item with meticulous attention. Rifles slung, straps adjusted, buckles checked. She worked silently, efficiently, with the rhythm of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Not for display, not to impress, just because it had to be done right. That night, as recruits prepared bunks in the dim glow of the barracks, Carson observed her through the window. Most recruits laughed, swapped stories, complained of sore backs and blisters. She sat on her lower bunk, cleaning gear with steady, practiced hands. Her face betrayed no emotion, no fatigue, just focus. Carson shook his head. "Too clean, too calm," he muttered. "She's hiding something." Even in hallways, small moments gnawed at his instincts. A corporal tried to provoke her with a comment about yearbook photos. She gave a polite nod, almost imperceptibly smiling at the edges of her mouth. A simple reaction, yet it unsettled him more than defiance ever could. Her pivots during formation were precise, her voice carried subtle authority, and she corrected other recruits' stances with calm expertise. "If you square your shoulders before the climb, your balance holds," she instructed once. The recruit blinked, confused. "How would you know that?" She merely smiled lightly. "Just trust me." Every action, every glance whispered a story she refused to tell. Carson couldn't see the truth, couldn't yet fathom it. Evelyn Shaw was no ordinary recruit. She was the architect of the very training programs she now participated in, a Pentagon-appointed evaluator, undercover as a civilian, sent to witness the system in action, to see how it treated those it believed were insignificant. Her silence, her composure, her refusal to react, it was all deliberate. Let them underestimate her. Let them talk. That was the point. By dusk, the training field emptied. Carson lingered, watching her across the grounds as she polished her canteen in the fading light. For a moment she looked up, meeting his eyes across the empty yard. No words, just stillness, recognition, a silent exchange. He couldn't explain it, but the weight of her calm gnawed at him. Tomorrow, he promised himself, he'd push harder. Yet even in that thought, he felt the unease of anticipation. No matter what he tried, her composure might remain unbroken. By the third day, it became clear who Carson's primary focus had become. Evelyn was singled out constantly. Push-ups, extra laps, harsher corrections. It became predictable to everyone but her. She met every challenge without complaint. Each exhaustion drill left her composed, nodding quietly as she completed the tasks, her voice soft, firm. "Permission to continue, Sergeant." Her calm was infuriating. Every recruit cracked under the pressure. She seemed untouchable. The gas chamber exercise proved it further. The thick, choking haze made most recruits stumble, cough, and cry. Evelyn walked through it with measured breaths, shoulders square, eyes forward. When others staggered out, she followed last, unflinching. Her composure wasn't learned in days. It was forged over years. That night, Carson sat alone, examining her file. Just a name, a birthday, a signature. Nothing else. He leaned back, arms crossed, muttering, "Who are you, Shaw?" Outside, rain tapped the tin roof, and he caught sight of her silhouette on night watch. Perfect posture, unobserved yet commanding. Morning brought a sharper edge. Carson pushed harder, faster, harsher. Obstacle courses, rope climbs, sprint crawls, all performed flawlessly by Evelyn. She offered no smirks, no triumph, only quiet, deliberate execution. During question drills, she answered advanced protocol questions instantly, factual, precise. Recruits laughed, assuming she was joking. Carson, however, felt the gnawing realization. She wasn't new. She had experience far beyond this base. When live simulations began, chaos erupted. Smoke grenades, alarms, sounds of confusion. Recruits faltered. Evelyn did not. She guided, instructed, controlled. Hands on dummies, correcting teammates, pacing squads with calm authority. Carson watched, pulse racing. She commanded obedience without shouting, anticipated panic, controlled fear with words alone. Observers behind the control glass muttered, noting her leadership as beyond a rookie's level. By the end of the exercises, Carson noticed the subtle mark, a faded Navy insignia on her wristband, almost invisible under sunlight. Recognition struck like a cold punch. This wasn't a test. He wasn't testing her. He was in someone else's evaluation, and she had been observing him. "We'll see how tough you really are," he remembered saying, and now the words echoed back in bitter irony.